there! Thanks for listening to Let's Talk Withdrawal, a weekly discussion on antidepressants and the issues surrounding them.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Let's Talk Withdrawal, a new weekly podcast discussing antidepressants. Thanks so much for listening so far and for your reviews. It really makes a difference and helps this podcast to reach more people. This week we have an interview with Claire. Claire has been taking an antidepressant since the age of 16 and, like me, she's struggled several times to stop. She talks to us about her experiences of trying to withdraw and what support she got from her doctors. Claire, thank you so much for talking to us today. Can I start by asking you to tell us a little about your background and how you came to be on an antidepressant?
Yeah, of course. Basically, when I was about 14 years old, I started to suffer with anxiety and panic attacks. I didn't realise at the time that that's what they were. And I therefore developed sort of adolescent anxiety and depression. It got to the point where I became agoraphobic and wasn't able to leave the house. I was then homeschooled for 2 years and had therapy and counselling on a one-to-one basis and also group therapy. It was the psychiatrist there that suggested to my parents that it would be beneficial to me to start taking antidepressants. So that's how it began, really, at that young age.
And being that young, did you have any idea at all about what an antidepressant was and what it would do to you?
Yeah, I remember feeling very nervous about taking it. Even at that young age, I read the patient information leaflet and sort of frightened myself. But it was explained to me that I had a chemical imbalance in my brain. So that was why I needed to take the tablets to balance me out, and then I would be okay. It would help me greatly. So it did take me a couple of weeks to pluck up the courage to actually take the first tablet. And to be honest, it did help. I don't know if that was just a placebo effect or if they were actually having an effect on me, but things did get easier for me. So in that respect, I don't necessarily have any regrets, but I was then left on them for another 19 years.
Claire, it's good to hear that the medication helped you initially, but did you experience anything by way of side effects during that time?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I was told I wouldn't experience any. But yes, I did. They mainly headaches, insomnia. I found it really hard to sleep, sort of sweating a lot. But other than that, it wasn't too bad with the side effects going onto them. And
in that time period that you were taking your antidepressant, did you go back to your doctor for advice or support?
So basically, over the sort of 19 years, there's only been one occasion that I was invited to the doctors to have a review of medication. Every other time I initiated it. I have tried over those 19 years on 6 occasions to come off the antidepressants, but failed terribly due to the severe withdrawal problems. And on 2 occasions, I've had 2 nervous breakdowns as a result of the symptoms. I've also had periods in the last 19 years where I have suffered with intense anxiety and depression despite being on the drugs. And on those occasions, I was told that the drug had pooped out. It had stopped working. So I was transferred onto different antidepressants. So in that period of time, I've been on 4 different antidepressants. Never was I encouraged to come off them. It was always just a case of, well, they're not working. You're someone that suffers with anxiety and depression. You need these tablets, you might be on them for life, and that's what I was led to believe.
When you started to think about maybe having to take the antidepressant for life, how did you feel about that?
I think initially I just trusted what they were telling me, as I know my family did, just thought, this is a condition that I have, a problem that I have, and this is the medication I'm going to have to take for life. It was likened to a diabetic needing their insulin. So I guess I bought into that this is just me and that's what I would need to do.
That's such a common reason given for taking these medications, but there's really no comparison at all between insulin and an antidepressant.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, since this last attempt of coming off the drugs and if finally getting somewhere with it, I've learned a lot and understood that it was all not so much lies. I think they truly do believe, some doctors still do, that is the case. It is a chemical imbalance, but, it's not everything that I was told isn't really the way it is. And I don't need to be on them for life.
I agree completely. That's certainly how I feel. Claire, I know that your withdrawal experiences were not at all pleasant, but could you tell us a bit about how you tried to withdraw, how far you got, and how you felt about not being able to?
I tried different ways of tapering. Like I say, I initiated it. I went to the doctor and said, I'm in a really good place. I don't think I need to be on them all the time. I'd really like to come off them because I did have concerns about the long-term side effects and I felt okay in life. So that's why I initiated it. There was different ways I'd been advised to give it a go. I mean, they varied from taking a pill every other day, cutting the dose down and doing it every other day. I mean, there was different methods, using a liquid form and diluting it with water. All those methods failed. They were ever so quick. The actual withdrawal sort of tapering program that I was given would have only have taken a month or two at max. So it was very fast and it did not take long for things to get really difficult. So the only way to resolve that and help me feel better again was to reinstate a full dose. So every time, that's exactly what happened.
Well, I can't imagine that was an easy thing to accept. How did you feel about having to go back up after trying to withdraw?
Like a prisoner, really. Absolutely trapped. Just desperate, confused, not knowing how I'd ever get off it, thinking, my gosh, am I really that reliant on it? Because it got to a point where I couldn't have cared less about putting that tablet back in my mouth, but my brain was so chemically reliant on it that I had no choice. And when in the younger years, I knew one day I'd like to have a family, and it wasn't advisable to be on these drugs when pregnant. And I thought, am I ever actually going to get off them? Trapped, really. That's how I felt.
I can understand that. And regarding where you are now, have you stopped completely?
I'm actually off them. It's about 9 months now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It's been very, very difficult. My husband and I got married last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I made the decision that I was going to start researching this myself. I did lose trust in what my doctor was telling me on how to taper. So I researched it myself. And so, a couple of years before our wedding, I started to do a very slow taper. I would cut the slowest I'd ever done. So I did taper over 2 years. I also had to fight my doctor for the liquid form of the drug, which made the tapering a lot easier and slower. And it was the first time that I'd actually found the tapering process to be okay. I had head shocks and palpitations, but nothing too intense that would took over, my day-to-day life. I, continued to do it. And about a month after our wedding, I finally took the last dose and I was ecstatic. I had finally done it. Unfortunately, that was very short-lived because about 5 days later, I got very, very poorly. And I was then told that I'd developed discontinuation syndrome. Right. And life got very dark. So it has been a very, very difficult 9 months. I didn't even know that this could happen. I honestly thought once I'd got through the tapering side of things, I was, home dry, but that wasn't the case for me.
And can you tell us a bit more about discontinuation syndrome?
Yeah, so basically, I think a lot of factors were against me in the sense that I was put on it at a young age. I had taken it for, like I say, over 19 years. I'd been on numerous, 4 different types of antidepressant. I also had so many failed attempts to get off the drug. So I think everything was against me. It began with the head shocks. Whereas I'd experienced them now and then, it was 24/7, even when I shut my eyes, even when I tried to sleep. The physical symptoms got very, very intense, chronic headaches, palpitations, migraines. I mean, the list is endless. I felt like my whole body was shutting down in physical pain, every part of me. It took about 5-6 months for the serious sort of physical symptoms to start to ease. But I've also had a lot of psychological problems, intense anxiety and depression, obsessive, like negative thoughts, and the most frightening of all is very intense suicidal thoughts. So it's not been easy at all, and I've had to battle that the whole time, because I was told, obviously, if I go back on the drug, everything would be okay and I'd start to feel better. But it's in this time that I've started to realise what these drugs were doing to me, and it wasn't an option. So I've had to push through.
Well, I have tremendous admiration for you sticking with your principles, and it's just so disappointing that a doctor's response to it is go back to your full dose, which clearly wasn't acceptable either. And other than medical type support, were there any other things that you're using to help and support you during this?
The biggest thing that has kept me going, and the main reason that I'm still here talking to you right now, is my amazing family. Especially my husband and my parents. They have literally got me through the last 9 months, because I haven't been able to look after myself. I have been bedridden and housebound with how poorly I've been. My friends have been amazing. And I haven't been able to work. I haven't worked since, 5 days after stopping the drug. So, the support has been amazing, and that's what's kept me going. I have been waiting a long time. It took 7 months to begin some form of talking therapy through the NHS, because the waiting list was so long. I, for a short period, paid for some therapy privately, but it's expensive. And I, was waiting for the NHS, and I have begun that now, but it's taken 7 months for that to actually begin. So that is helping. I think that will continue to help me move forward now and just build my confidence back up, because it's shook me completely. I've lost all my confidence, and that's, I've got to rebuild my life again now that the physical symptoms are slowly starting to ease. It has left me with nerve damage across my head and in my legs. So I'm still got some physical symptoms, but slowly I'll get there. To be honest, the two things that really helped were Rescue Remedy. I found that very helpful. Lavender oil and a magnesium supplement. All these things that people advised from talking on the forums online and things like that. So they're the things that I've tried.
It's clearly been a hell of a time for you, and just when you thought it was over, there was worse to come, which was unexpected and really difficult to deal with. I can see why that knocked your confidence so much. Claire, can I ask, have you got any tips or advice for others out there who may be thinking about stopping an antidepressant?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would suggest is to make sure that you are in a good place in life, that you've not got too much stress going on or any big events that could hinder, things going well for you. I think the next thing would be to share it with your friends, your family, what you're about to embark upon. Educate yourself, educate them, because, that's the biggest thing that has helped me, is having them help me get through this. And to go slow. I think that is the biggest thing, is to take this slowly. Tapering. I started to do like a 10% taper every 4 weeks before I then did another drop. I found that once I had the liquid form of the drug, it was really helpful. But it's just a case of going slow, give your body, time to adjust to the change in the dose. It makes it a lot easier. Like I say, it took me 2 years to do that, but it's the only time I've succeeded without the really bad side effects. And just be kind to yourself, because it's not easy. It really isn't easy, but, don't give yourself a hard time and just take things a day at a time.
And if you had a friend who was thinking of taking an antidepressant and came to you for advice, what would you say to them? I
would probably advise them to be cautious. I would encourage them to have exhausted every other option available, talking therapies, exercise. I'm having acupuncture and alternative therapies at the moment. I'm finding them very, very beneficial. I would suggest that they exhausted every other route available to them before considering taking the tablets. And if that decision was to happen, I'd encourage them to educate themselves on, the side effects and the potential withdrawal problems and the potential long-term side effects of the drugs as well. So, but it's a very difficult and personal choice, but they would be my 2 bits of advice, really.
You also mentioned earlier about other support, and I'm aware that family and friends are crucial. I'm also aware that there are some really vibrant communities on places like Facebook. Is that something that helped you as well?
That has helped me as well, because in the moment of complete despair, not understanding what is happening to you or why, it's very, very frightening. And that was the only lifeline I had, really, was to reach out and search things online. And that has given me a lot of comfort and a lot of help to speak to people that are going through the same thing as me. And I'm getting a lot of, benefit, and it helps me to help other people now that I'm feeling stronger. It's nice to be able to share what I've been through, because if it helps one person, it's good. Some good has got to come from this hell that I've been through. That's kind of how I feel.
I agree, and I certainly find that the Facebook groups and others on the internet are amazing because they provide the kind of support that it's difficult to get from a GP. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the people that are listening in?
We need to get the word out there that it's not as straightforward as people think it is. There's more to this, more to antidepressants and other similar drugs than we think.
Absolutely. And the worrying thing for me, and I'm sure you've come across this yourself, is that less well-educated family and friends, and even doctors and psychiatrists, have said that I'm in the minority suffering these effects and that it doesn't happen to that many people. And that's just blatantly not true. It actually happens to at least 50%, and for some antidepressants, 70% of people get severe and protracted withdrawal, and it's worrying that we dished out 63 million of these things in a single year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's great to be able to research online, but something I found really hard in withdrawal was actually concentrating, just being able to hold my attention to anything. So you find that there's a lot out there if you start searching, but actually having the mindset to be able to digest it and read that is really hard when you are in absolute physical and mental pain. So I think this is an absolutely wonderful idea. I, wish this had been around 9 months ago, but...
Me too. Like many of these things, I remember thinking to myself, wouldn't it be good if I could just hear people talk about this? And eventually I got myself around to doing something about it. But I can only do this because brave people like yourself are willing to be open. You're right, if by doing this we help one person or 10 people or whatever it is, it's worth doing to make sure that people know these medications are powerful and they come with consequences. And you're best to know about those consequences and make your own judgment before you start, because you clearly didn't know about these, and neither did I.
No, exactly. Absolutely agree. It's, also being told, from some doctors that what's happening to me isn't real, that, I should be over that within a couple of weeks. There's no such thing. So there is like little understanding, and it does make you feel like you're going crazy. But to be able to share this with other people, it just confirms that it is real, it is actually happening, and you just don't feel alone. And that goes a long way to helping you recover and heal.
Claire, you've been so passionate and so forthright and so clear. I really am grateful to you for doing this.
Well, thank you for creating this and doing everything you're doing. I'm happy to support and help you in any way that I can. Great. And thank you for giving me the chance to share my side of things and my story.
Well, I'd like to say it was a pleasure, but hearing these things is heart-rending because while I don't know exactly how you feel, I know the sense of frustration that you can't get past it. It is almost as bad as the physical things. The berating yourself and saying I'm weak compared to other people. It really is an assault on everything, isn't it? Physically and emotionally. Completely.
It absolutely knocks you for six. I mean, I described it to the therapist the other day that I feel completely lost. I don't know me as an adult without that sort of chemical input from the drugs. So it is a case of finding myself again and healing from the damage that's been done. But yeah, it is absolutely, it's the whole being, mind, body and soul. It completely and utterly destroys you, really. We have to keep fighting and we have to keep moving forward and getting our voice out there.
Well, stories like yours are shocking, but they're inspirational too, because with a lot of cost, I appreciate that, it's still possible to come through. And I have every confidence in you that you'll continue to improve. And there will come a time where you'll look back and think, look what I achieved and look what I have come through.
Yeah, we're just looking forward now. And now that I'm finally starting to feel like I'm coming to the other side of this, I've still got a long way to go. But when I sit and look back and talk to you and think how far I have come, I'm getting there. And you will too.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Claire. I'm so grateful to Claire for taking the time to talk to us and being so open. For her and the others that we'll hear from over the next few weeks, we need to get this message out as loudly as we can to as many as we can. You can help us do this by listening in, telling others to listen into, and reviewing this podcast on iTunes.
Feedback.
This week I need to ask for your help because I want more people to interview for this podcast. If you've been inspired by the stories you've heard so far, please drop me an email on feedback@jfmore.co.uk. I'd love to have a chat. Finally, if you are struggling with withdrawal yourself and don't know where to turn, there are some excellent resources listed on my website, jfmore.co.uk. Please go and have a look.
Please do not increase, decrease, or stop your psychoactive prescription medication without the advice and support of a medical or mental health professional.
Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care.
Thank you so much for listening to Let's Talk Withdrawal. Come back next week for more news and views. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe in iTunes.